Hello everyone! Today we're going to work with if statements. So previously we worked with user input and we were able to bring in a value and display it on the screen. Now we're going to work with actually controlling the flow of the program. So previously we had our include IO stream, which was the ability to get inputs and outputs from the terminal. We also have the ability here to include strings. So we will take advantage of that. And actually, I made a mistake because this code is from the variable section. To be able to get an input, we used cin. No worries though, we can put that in right here. So let's do an example now with some if statements because variables, they're pretty straightforward. Let's change this to my age, and we'll set it to 0. We'll also do an output here, and we will say, what is your age? We will take the age from the terminal, and now instead of just displaying it, let's do an if statement. We'll say if my age, let's do equals, we'll explain this in a second, 16. Coming from America, this means you can start to learn how to drive. So we will just say you can drive. Now if you're from another country, you might be thinking you have to wait till you're 18. Don't worry, we have plenty of restrictions to prevent you from doing other things until you're much older. We're missing a semicolon here, that's why that was not happy. And let's run this now. So if I just put in 15, the program doesn't do anything. So we'll fix that. Now if I put in 16, it says I didn't put in 16. I put in trying to run a program from before. My mistake. Let's try this again. 1, 6. There we go. It says you can drive. So obviously, by my little mishap here, you can see that you have to enter in exactly 16. If you enter in absolutely anything else, whether it's a number or a string, it will not do what is inside of these curly braces. So these curly braces group together all of the things that you want to do if this if statement is true. Let's say we want to put in some more details, and if they're not 16, we will just say you're not 16. This is the strangest logic I've written all day, but it proves a point. If we run this now, and let's say we put in 15, it will say you're not 16. So else is what will run if this is not true. So if my age equals 16, it'll do this. If it's not 16, it will do that. Now you might be thinking, why is there two equal signs? Well, the reason for that is, as you can see up here, one equal sign means a sign of value to the variable. We don't want to assign 16 to my age. We want to check if my age equals 16. And the way you do that is by putting in an equal sign. Perfect. All right. Now let's try a little bit more complicated. Let's say if they're less than 13, we will say you're a child. Now with else, we can include an if, and we can say my age is greater than or equal to 13, because we want to cover 13. And notice it's not the word and, it's two ampersands. My age is less than or equal to 18. We'll say you are a teenager. And then we'll put in another else, and we'll just say you are an adult. In this case, if you're less than 13 years old, we're going to say you're a child. If you're greater than or equal to 13 and you're less than or equal to 18, we'll say you're a teenager. And then for our else statement, we'll say you are an adult. The word and, as I mentioned, cannot be used. You need to use 2 ampersands. That's a little bit of an interesting thing. Or if you want to use the word or, so if you wanted to say if you're older than 13 years old, or you're less than 18 years old, which will cover absolutely everything. So that would not make sense in this case. But you can use pipe, which is the symbol for or. Above your enter key, you probably have a backslash if you have an English keyboard, and shift backslash will give you that little pipe character. All right, so we covered our ands and our ors, and we'll just run this real quick to prove the point. If we put in 10, it says you're a child. If we put in 15, it says you're a teenager. If we put in 20, it says you're an adult. All right, so we've covered all the different things with if statements. The only thing we haven't talked about yet is strings. So let's do that real quick. Let's change this to a standard string. We'll call our variable name. We'll set it to nothing to start out with, and we'll say, what is your name? And now we want to input the name. And we'll say, if your name equals, again, double equals, Nancy. We will say you are Nancy. Else, we will say you are not Nancy. Tricky, right? So let's run that. Now it's asking for the name, and we say Nancy, and it says you are Nancy. So this is how you compare 2 strings, this string versus that string. It says you are Nancy. And let's point out the fact that this is case sensitive. So if we run this and we put it all lowercase, you are not Nancy. Well, that's interesting. And like I said, the reason for that is this is very case sensitive, kind of like a password. If you type in your password with the uppercase versus lowercase, it won't work. That is the same situation that you're dealing with here. Now, the only other thing I can really think of to cover with if statements are, let's say that you have a predefined name. We'll say Bob. That works. If we do it this way, we can say if defined name equals the name that we entered, your name matches. Let's run that, and let's just see if we type in Bob, your name matches. So this is how you would compare 2 variables. This variable we're hard setting to Bob, and instead of comparing it to a bunch of words in quote marks, we're actually comparing 2 different variables to one another. Now there is one other thing that I did think of, and that is if you only have one statement, in this case standard cout, there's only one line here. This is 2. This will not work. The red squigglies tell you this will not work. But if you only have one statement, you can actually forego using the curly braces. Now, if you're learning this for a job and your style sheet for your company says that you must always include curly braces, obviously do that. I'm just giving you the option to show you that If you see code without them, this is why it works. If you decide that you want to do it this way, you can do it this way also. All right, so we have covered if statements. I hope that this was an enjoyable experience for you and educational. We will look forward to seeing you in the next video.